Welcome to Lifestyle Solopreneur, the community for entrepreneurs who put lifestyle first. Join your host Flavia Barris as she interviews successful lifestyle solopreneurs and shares ideas to help you find the perfect balance between lifestyle, business, and self. Flavia is an attorney, marketing expert, and founder of several online academies. She's been featured in major media including BBC World News, The Wall Street Journal, The New York Post, ESPN Television, and more. Join us for this episode of Lifestyle Solopreneur.
Hey, Lifestyle Solopreneurs. Today we get the absolute privilege of hearing from Alan Brown. Alan is with IndyBlueprints.com, and he spent 4 years in the Marine Corps, after which he got into custom cabinets, interior trim, and woodworking. So we got to see how someone goes from being a Marine Corps guy to a woodworker, and I want to see what that journey's like. And then not long after that, he started his own business remodeling homes. And then from just remodeling the homes, he went into building new homes. At that time, he started out by drawing the blueprints for his homes that he was building with just pencil and paper, the old-fashioned way, which eventually evolved into the latest in 3D drafting software. Over 25 years, he's now designed and built over 200 custom homes, each one different, ranging from 1,800 square feet to over 11,000 square feet. Wow, that's a huge home. In 2007, he designed and helped build the very first LEED certified home in Indiana. We'll let him talk to you about what LEED means. And in 2014, he was the first builder in central Indiana to become a certified passive home builder by the Passive House Institute, US. I want to know what a passive house is, since we're all in a passive income here on this podcast, but let's see what a passive house is and how that works in to just our vocabulary in the real estate world. He has built some of the most energy efficient homes in the state of Indiana and has taught builders around the country on green building methods. After selling his custom home business in 2017, he started designing homes full time along with real estate investing and managing short-term rentals. So that's like the Airbnbs, the VRBOs. We'll talk to him about short-term rentals and what he thinks about that and how that's gone for him. He has been married for 28 years, nice long marriage, and has 2 successful adult children in their mid-20s. Welcome to the show, Alan.
Hey, thank you very much.
Great to have you on. So a lot of what's in your bio, I'm intimately involved with. I happen to also be a LEED AP, which is a LEED accredited professional. I actually jumped on that bandwagon right when they launched their LEED certification program for professionals. I was actually one of the very first lawyers, maybe at that time, one of the very few lawyers to take that test. And at the time, it was just a test that you studied for. You took an exam to sort of prove that you knew about green building methods and some of the construction industry work around sustainability and green. And so tell us a little bit about your journey in the sort of the sustainability and sustainable construction world.
Yeah, so since I've been designing and building for so many years, I looked at the way houses were being built around here, and then I started researching online about energy efficiency and realized that there is just so much information out there, and there's just a lot of cutting edge stuff going on for building super efficient homes. And as far as the LEED goes, back in 2007, that was a pretty popular thing, and we didn't have a single LEED certified home in the state of Indiana. So me and my business partner both got trained on LEED and then decided to build one. And it wasn't a platinum, but it was a gold level LEED. It was interesting going through the process of that. And after that, I didn't really make LEED a super high priority. The reason is in my mind, LEED really focuses on your carbon footprint. So you get extra points for ordering brick that was made within 100 miles of your house. That way it doesn't have a big carbon footprint by the delivery using the diesel trucks. But there's so many things on there that didn't make the house any more energy efficient. And so although it's a really good, noble thing, I was really more interested in super energy efficiency along with sustainability, so you can build a house that costs almost nothing to heat and cool. And so 7 years after that, 2014, I went to Vermont for a week-long training course put on by the Passive House Institute. So Passive House it's really the most energy efficient green building standard on the planet. It started in Austria and Germany probably 30 years ago. And with Passive House, if you use all the principles, you can theoretically build a house, and even in cold weather like Indianapolis, Indiana, or even in Alaska, and eliminate the heating and cooling system completely.
My eyes are huge. My jaw's dropped. You mean the home could actually have no heating furnace, no heating source at all?
Exactly.
Even in Alaska.
And there's even in Alaska. I mean, it's more
not one of
expensive
those
to do in Alaska.
Funny looking homes where you build a giant clear dome around it so that you have the greenhouse effect all year round. I saw that.
No,
I saw a picture of that recently. I was like, well, that's one way to do it.
Yeah, I'll tell you real quick what some of the kind of guiding principles of Passive House building is. One, the house is super insulated. So many ways you can do that. You can build double thick walls, because really what you're trying to do is prevent the cold from the outside reaching to the inside. So if you have a brick home with 2x4 walls, or 2x6 walls, no matter how good your insulation is in between those studs, the cold is going to go through that brick, through your sheathing, through that wall stud, and leave a cold blue stripe on the inside of your drywall. And that's thermal bridging is what the term for that is. So what you need to do is make sure you completely stop the thermal bridging. So you make a thicker, more insulated wall. And then one of the biggest keys is making the home absolutely airtight, because the inefficiency of a home comes in a really leaky house. Because if your house leaks, everybody's been in old houses where in the wintertime you can feel the cold air coming through the windows. And if you make a super airtight home, then that really cuts down on your energy loss. Another big thing is you need to make sure the back of the house is facing south. And because the back of the house is typically where all your windows are. So then you put overhangs over each window. And with the computer program that I use to draw houses, I can pick any spot in the world, GPS location, any time of day, any day of the year, and it'll show me exactly what the sun is doing and where it's shining. So I can design the overhang. So in the summertime, when the sun is up high, the sun actually hits the overhang and then hits below the bottom of the window. So it does not come inside the house, heat up the surfaces inside the house, and overtax your air conditioning. Then in the wintertime, when the sun hangs low, it comes in the house, comes in the windows, heats solid surfaces inside the house, and that's passive solar heating.
That's fantastic.
So
it just sounds like this is not only great for the world, but a huge passion of yours. I mean, is it your vision to have every house be built with some of these principles and to have all builders pay attention to this? Or where do you think we're going in society? I mean, is this something that a lot of different builders are starting to incorporate, or are you kind of alone, ahead of the pack?
Way ahead of the pack, at least around here. So I've always looked at the Midwest as a very conservative building market. And by conservative, I don't mean politically. I mean, there's so many builders that have the attitude, we have been building it this way 100 years. Why should we do it any different? And the crazy thing about this is it doesn't take a whole lot extra money to get to that point. But there's so many people that they just don't care. I mean, it's sad, but it's there.
So interesting. We're actually on a property that we own. We are building 2 additional units. It has 1 unit on it currently, 1 residential dwelling unit. And this conversation really hasn't come up. We have an architect working on the plans and we've got our contractor picked out, but it's not really part of that equation. I mean, I'm sure it will meet code. So whatever the city requires as far as sustainability and all of that, it'll be up to code. But the conversation didn't even come up where we as homeowners, as the client, were asked, hey, do you want to make this home extra green, or here's some options, or any of that? And I mean, right now we're just at the conceptual drawing stage. So we're not even talking yet about the nitty gritty of the design, and maybe some of those factors will come up. They just haven't yet. I just think it's very interesting that there's a lot of home builders too that are probably going to look at bottom line, like How much more
Absolutely.
expensive will it be to design and build this way? And will we recoup that from the buyer? And also, a lot of buyers may not give a lot of value necessarily to sustainability, not really realizing how much over the life of, staying there and living there, they'll save on utilities and maintenance on HVAC and other equipment, just by using
Sure.
some of this kind of passive heating and passive. It's not really cooling, but it's almost like heat reduction in the summer, right? By keeping the sun
Right.
out of the areas, it'll capture it.
And plus, if you're in a area that's not too humid, opening your windows at night and then closing them in the morning when you get up is another way to cool your house. And if it's super insulated, it's going to mostly maintain that cooler temperature.
Well, and that's
So
something everyone can do, right? Get some blackout
absolutely,
curtains.
yeah, absolutely. But I'll give you a real world example of a house I built a couple of years ago, and we lived in this house. My intention was to make this house the very first certified passive house in the state of Indiana. But I hate to say it, but the certification process became too expensive with all the fees. So instead, I built that house to sell, and I didn't see very high likelihood of people seeing that certification and saying, oh, I'm going to pay extra for that certification. So what I did was I used all of the passive house principles and made just a super, super efficient house. So this house was 6,000 square feet, 7 bedrooms, 5 baths, walkout basement, pool on a lake, had a hot tub. And the reason I bring up the pool and the hot tub is because that's electricity we're using is heating and cooling the hot tub and the pool, right? And the house we put in geothermal heating and cooling, and there is a 30% federal rebate on geothermal heating and cooling, which brings that heating system down to the cost of a standard high efficiency air-to-air heat pump, but it's so much more efficient. And this 6,000 square foot house only had a 2.5 ton geothermal furnace, which a house that size is usually going to have 2 furnaces, maybe 3 ton and 4 ton, which is just how they size the furnaces. And with the one thing I did was put an energy monitoring system on it, and consistently for the 2.5 years that we lived there, it was $400 to $420 heating and cooling combined for the entire year. Where I know a lot of people in this area, they'll spend $500 or $600 a month in the wintertime to heat their house.
That's incredible. Well, this is a huge passion of yours. So how did you go from the work that you do to build homes into managing short-term rentals? Was that completely a separate path, or was there a link between the two?
Absolutely was a link. So about 6 or 7 years ago, I had a customer come to me and he said, I want you to build me a house downtown Indianapolis, and I want a 2-bedroom apartment in the basement and a 1-bedroom apartment carriage house above the garage. Those 2 rents will pay for the mortgage, and my wife and I will live in the house. And I said, well, sure. Never seen that before, but let's do it. And then 6 months later, he came to me and said, I'm ready to build the next one. I said, well, you selling that one? He said, no, I'm just going to build another one. And he built a 2-story home, 2-bedroom, 2-bath on the first floor, 2-bedroom, 2-bath on the second floor, 1-bedroom apartment above the carriage house, rents all 3 of them out. It's just a income property for him. And I got to looking at what he was doing and said, wow, I can do that. And so we started looking for lots downtown, and we found a lot in one of the historic neighborhoods downtown. And the lot had been empty for 25 years. And we built a house on it. And the reason it had been empty is because back at the turn of the century, 1890 to 1910, the houses were built in the downtown area. And eventually, 30, 40, 50, 60 years later, some of them went into disrepair. People lost their jobs. The house went back to the bank. It sat empty for years. And then back in the mid-90s, the city was tired of all the abandoned houses, so they started bulldozing them down and putting the lots up for sale. Well, this one had been empty since 1995, and we bought it, got a good deal on it, and did the exact same thing. We built a 2-bedroom house or a 2-bedroom apartment in the basement, and it has its own exterior entrance. So they come from the side of the house, in an entry door, down the stairs, and they've got a 2-bedroom apartment and full kitchen, laundry, everything you need. And then we put a 1-bedroom apartment above the garage carriage house. So this cost us about $600,000 to build. And the rent that we're getting now from the 2 apartments is enough to cover our house payment, taxes, insurance, and utilities for the entire property. So we're basically living here for free.
That's outstanding. That's phenomenal. I mean, that's a lot of people are wanting to get into short-term vacation rentals. I think very few people, the strategy would include purchasing empty land or a lot and building. Very few people are building to suit for this kind of thing. They're looking for properties that they can use for Airbnb as is, or maybe just a little remodeling work. So what you're doing, I think, is actually very unique. And I don't know how much more you're planning to do it or how much this is a sort of a vision of the future for you. But do you think that you are going to do this more, or was this just something that you built so that you can live in one and rent two versus, I mean, are you planning to do this in homes that you don't occupy?
Well, our first thought, we've been in the house for 18 months. So it was brand new, finished construction, July of 2019. And our first thought was going to be rent out the 2 units long-term rental, because that's what my customer is doing. And I didn't think of anything else. So then I started talking to builders and realtors in the downtown area, and a lot of them were transitioning over from long-term rent to short-term rent. And so I started looking into that and thought, wow, we can do that. So there's a little bit of extra cost involved to furnish the unit. Just like any vacation house, you have to have furniture and appliances and dishes, etc. So the first thing we did was start renting it out on Airbnb and VRBO. And that was going really fantastic. Very few problems. And it was easy for me because it's not a property I was managing out of state. So I work at home anyways. So I was able to clean the units when needed. And if I got too busy, there's a huge network of short-term rental house cleaners in any city, really. But then when the COVID hit, the Airbnb business just shut down. Travel mostly shut down. And so, we thought about it. We're like, what should we do? And I was on several Airbnb host Facebook pages, and somebody had mentioned that they were renting to travel nurses. And there is a website called furnishedfinder.com. And that is primarily for nurses who take travel assignments to rent short-term rentals. And their travel nurses are typically 90 days at a time. And being in downtown Indianapolis, we are within, I'd say, 8 miles of 20 hospitals. And because of that, we have been absolutely steady. I get probably 2 or 3 inquiries a week from travel nurses coming to the city.
Well, it sounds like something you can definitely replicate and grow in this area. I mean, I think, and you even have a network already of agents.
And I didn't actually answer your question of what my intention was. So our intention was to just live here, use the rental income to use our income and the rental income to make double payments, pay the house off in a short period of time. But then the crazy thing is, downtown Indianapolis, the houses appraised for about $200 a square foot. And in the surrounding counties, it's closer to somewhere from $110 to $150 a square foot. And with it costing us about $150 a square foot to build and appraising for $200 a square foot, now we're thinking, okay, now what do we do? Do we keep this one and build another one, or do we sell this one, make a huge amount of profit, and build 2? But so we're so definitely going to keep doing it, but just a question of which direction do we go now?
Right. And, you have to talk to your CPA and tax people too, because as a homeowner who is the primary occupant of a home, so if you live in a home and you sell it, there's a certain amount of capital gains that tax you wouldn't pay. There's an exemption, for single or married
as long
couples.
as long as we live in the house for 2 years, we don't have to pay capital gains on the profit of selling it. The downside is the property taxes. So if it is an owner-occupied home like we have now, your property taxes are 1% of the value. It is a rental home we don't live in, it's 2% of the value. So that makes it a little tougher, but we'll still live in the next one.
So much to think about. Yep. A lot of planning there, and it's exciting. what do you do to keep yourself sort of balanced? Because I know from working with a lot of different home builders and people in construction that it's a demanding life, or it can be. I mean, I don't know if you've managed to find a way to make it be less so, but this podcast really focuses on ways to be successful in your business, but not let it take over your life.
Right. But since I sold my share of the building business a few years ago, and I'm strictly designing full time, and I'm able to stay home, I don't have the headaches of subcontractors on a regular basis. And the great part is, with the income we're making on the rental properties, I don't have to bust my butt and work all the time to pay the bills.
And let's focus on this too, because a lot of solopreneurs and people who are going off on their own to start a business, they're very focused on their business income, business expenses, profitability there, how they're going to scale, how they're going to leverage. But very few of them really look at some of their personal expenses as an area where they can really like fine tune a plan and come up with a way to save money in their personal life. And this thing called house hacking, right? House hacking means that instead of just living a traditional home life either being a renter or an owner and just kind of going cookie cutter and doing what everyone else is doing, home hackers, they look at their home and living situation as a way to optimize and minimize expenses. So what you're doing right now would be house hacking. And that's where you have converted a home that you would otherwise have as just like a single family home, one home on a lot, kind of average the way a lot of people live or aspire to live. And you built 2 additional units, rent those out, and your living expenses are now nil, or you're actually making some cash flow from those units. And so that is house hacking. It's where you've sort of eliminated your own housing costs by being really creative. And there's people that do it in ways that are not as comfortable. They may say, well, instead of paying for my own apartment to live in this big city, I'm actually going to just pay for a room, or I'm going to rent a 3-bedroom apartment, but I'm going to sub rent to some roommates, with the landlord's permission, the 2 of the rooms, so that it all kind of works out for me where I'm minimizing my own outlay. And that is something, I mean, it really depends, because some entrepreneurs have families, or for whatever reason, they really can't make adjustments in how they live. But for others who are trying to leave a 9-to-5 grind job, and one of your concerns is, well, how am I going to pay for my housing while I'm getting my business off the ground, would be to kind of go to some of these house hacking blogs, go to the house hacking discussion forums, see what people are doing, because it can be a very interesting way to save money on your living expenses. Even retirees, forget entrepreneurs, even people who are on limited fixed incomes or have decided they want to retire early and they're trying to figure out how to make that work. Housing can be a huge component of a person's budget. And if you can really optimize your housing costs, it can open up a world of new jobs for you. Maybe you don't need to work. Maybe your retirement income will stretch out further. Maybe you can splurge in other areas like vacationing, because you really minimize what you pay every month as your sort of fixed housing cost.
Right. And we're planning on fully retiring at age 60, which is about 4 years from now. And if we keep this place, and regardless of whether we build the next one, so if we keep this place and rent all 3 units out, it's going to bring in gross almost $80,000 a year. And that eliminates me from having to work in my retirement at all.
Absolutely. And it's just from being strategic, because a lot of people wouldn't have thought to do what you did. So it's great that got sparked and that you followed up on it. I mean, it's very helpful that you're a builder, so you could do this yourself. Not everybody needs to build it. I mean, somebody could buy a quad or a triplex, or it could be just a duplex, potentially. You have to look at the numbers. But I'm a real estate girl. I love real estate. I always say, you know what? You don't have to have your entire nest egg invested in real estate. But if you have none of your nest egg, if you're not diversified into real estate, even one slice of the pie, rethink that. Talk to someone, talk to a financial planner, because as a sector of economics, real estate can be a huge wealth creator. And again, a lot of people lose money on real estate. So they look at it a little wary of it, maybe a little leery. Maybe they lost money in the last crash. But again, it's all about strategy and diversification. And there's ways to play real estate smart. And house hacking, which really is kind of what we've been talking about in a roundabout way, because I don't think you went into it going, I want to be a house hacker. I think you saw someone doing something pretty smart and you're like, hey, I should do that too. and you were able to jump in. But now through this podcast, we've now sparked this idea in who knows how many people's minds. And it is something that people can do strategically.
Absolutely. And it's not like we are sacrificing a lot of space by doing it, because in the downtown area, it's long, narrow lots. So we have a fairly skinny house, but it's still a 3-bedroom. I'm not counting the 2 rental properties. It's still a 3-bedroom, 3-bath with a 1,000 square foot rooftop deck and a hot tub. So we're very comfortable here.
And let me guess, your hot tub is somehow heated thermally, or, solar.
No, that would have been good, but no, I didn't do that this time.
Well, I'm over here on the opposite coast. So I'm on the West Coast in California, a very unique, interesting state, as I'm sure everybody in the world probably can agree. And here, solar is a pretty big deal right now. There's a lot of solar companies putting up solar panels on people's roofs. I've heard people chit chat about Tesla roof tiles as a sort of built-in solar panel right into the tile of the home. You're an expert in this area. What do you think about all of this new technology on solar, and where do you think that's going? Do you think that is the way of the future? Do you think pretty soon every single home that is built will have solar? Or do you think that's going to become a thing of the past and there'll be some sort of new technology or a different direction that everyone's going?
Well, a couple things on that. So as far as the solar goes, earlier I mentioned how Indiana was a very conservative building market. We are still fighting homeowners associations all over the state that made a rule, no solar. And I know California, you've got the right to solar. Well, we don't have that here. So homeowners associations can say, we don't want solar on your house because we don't like the way it looks. And I understand the thinking on that, because that started, 20 some years ago, back when the solar panels were not PV. They were these big tubes with water flowing through it, and they weren't very attractive. Now it's completely different than that. And I think we're getting closer and closer, because every year the solar panels become a little bit less expensive and a little more dependable and a little more energy efficient. So I think we're definitely going to keep going that direction. I don't think that in my lifetime we're going to see everybody using it. I think it's really going to take a long time to do that. But I think there's not a lot of downside to it, honestly. So I think it's going to continue to go that direction. However, I think possibly in my lifetime, there is going to be new technology that might be hydrogen powered. It might be, I don't know. But I think there's going to be some other technologies that come out that really free us from the fossil fuels.
Well, obviously
not completely, but for heating, not completely, because you still need fossil fuels to produce stuff. But I think for our heating and cooling needs, I think it's a definite possibility.
That's awesome. That's a great thing to aspire to, right? It's just keep reducing the carbon footprint and just being more efficient with energy. And that's another way to sort of expense hack. If you can bring down your utility costs and you can bring down, what you're paying every month and some of these expenses, that is another way as a solopreneur, you can sort of bootstrap your business if that's where you're coming from. If you had to really tighten the belt in order to get your business off the ground, because maybe for a little while you're not making the same income you were making from a full-time job before. So last question for you is, what are you working on now that you want to share with folks? How can people connect with you? What are you looking for right now? Are you looking to help people design more homes? Are you looking to coach people on short-term vacation rentals? How can folks learn more about you and connect?
Really through my website, indyblueprints.com, INDY, and then blueprints with an S.com. And I actually design houses all over the country. And farthest one I've designed away is Norway. But it's great with the internet and online meetings and 3D stuff. You don't have to be in the neighborhood. And so that's great. And funny thing, I mentioned that we've been listed our house on Furnished Finder and have gotten travel nurses. Well, my wife and I don't like the cold of Indiana. So we went on the travel nurse site and looked for a home on the Gulf Coast of Florida. And so next week we are just going down there for a month. And the crazy thing is, this house is right on the water, and most people who vacation down to Florida go on spring break, and they might pay $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 for a week. we were able to find a house on an intercoastal with its own dock on the water for $2,000, fully furnished for 1 month. And so we're just, we can work remotely from anywhere. So about half the time we're going to be working and half the time we're going to be looking for property.
And that's another, that's not exactly house hacking. That's more of becoming geographically independent, because there are some people that they will Airbnb or VRBO their own principal residence. They'll just put away all their personal things in storage, or maybe make the garage off limits, or whatever they need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then they take the money they make from renting out their home and just go on vacation, but they work remotely. And as long as you have good Wi-Fi these days, you can pretty much work from anywhere, which is just a really great way to untether yourself from geographic limitations in your business, especially if you have either an online business or one that allows you to work remotely like you're doing. So great on you for taking advantage of the fact that you can do that, and you can go enjoy some warmer weather and dip your feet off that dock and relax a little and just have a change of scenery, change of pace. I'm all about that too. I love doing that. I think listeners of this show tend to be those kind of people that like independence and adventure and travel. And so, yes, we are all on the same page here.
Now, so I'm connected locally with a bunch of short-term rental hosts. And about once a month, we've got a local group here that has a short-term rental tour. So there'll be 5 or 6 houses within walking distance, and it's put on by a realtor who's also a co-host and a host herself. So each month we go and visit these different homes, and it's amazing the number of different ways that people use short-term rental as homeowners. I've met some people who just had their house and they said, okay, we're going to put it on Airbnb and VRBO, and anytime it gets rented, we're going to couch surf at friends and family's house. And so they rent out their house for a weekend or a week or 2 weekends a month. And eventually they got to the point where they were renting it more than they were staying in it. So they went and rented another house to live in and rented and did that one full time and increase their income so that they could buy another house, and did it again.
That's a very conservative and less risky way to grow a short-term rental portfolio, because it's almost like you're easing into it, waiting until the profits are such that you feel very confident buying a new property and converting the one you were living in into full-time short-term rental, and then kind of keep growing that way. That to me is a very prudent way to get
it.
It
is, and it's
step into
and it's like, okay, we're gonna do this until it gets busy enough that the money forces us out of the home.
Well, I do know people here in town. So I'm in San Diego, California. We have a big event called Comic-Con. And every time Comic-Con is in town, it's sort of like a comic book, movie-centric, entertainment-centric expo, right? For anyone who hasn't heard of it, which is not that many probably. But it's a big, giant convention. People show up in costumes. They're dressed like superheroes. They take over downtown San Diego. It's a lot of fun. And of course, they completely book out all the hotels, plus all the short-term rentals. And so I know people that only rent out their home during big events like that in San Diego. And, if it's a very nice home, they can get like, a movie director and the whole crew and entourage for that director or whoever it is to rent the house. And it's something like $10,000 to $20,000 for the week. And for these owners, it's absolutely fantastic. They actually don't want to be around when it's that crowded with Comic-Con going on. They're maybe not comic book, hero fans themselves. So they just pack up all their personal things, put their house on the market, rent it out for the $20,000, and they're just gone for a week. And it's a win-win-win all around. So
absolutely. And so Indianapolis is a really big convention town. And when there is 2020, obviously there weren't that many conventions. Most of them got canceled or pushed out. But when there are conventions, we can jack the price up per night to 3 times what the usual rate is when nothing's going on. So let's see, later next month, mid-March to first week in April, we got a huge thing, which is the NCAA basketball tournament decided every single game for the whole tournament is going to be in Indianapolis instead of just the Final Four. And so if they allow fans, we'll probably rent out the whole house, all 3 units.
Definitely. Absolutely. Well, I hope that this conversation has sparked a lot of ideas for everyone listening, ways to maybe reevaluate what you're doing with your own home and living situation. Maybe you have an interest in short-term vacation rentals, but you are a little worried about jumping in with both feet. And we've talked about a way to jump in with one foot and to ease your way into that world. And I do think this conversation probably has gotten a lot of people thinking about energy efficiency in general, too, as ways to save money, but also help the planet. And hopefully for anybody that wants to connect with you, Alan, further, they can go to indyblueprints.com. That's INDY blueprints.com. And I hope you keep that conversation going, because what you're doing in the world right now is just fantastic and great. And I wish you a great vacation down in Florida.
Yeah, thank you so much. I wish I could say that all these were my original ideas, but they weren't. But I'm just thrilled because 10 years ago, I didn't see myself doing this at all.
Well, these ideas are worth sharing. Nothing is an original idea, it seems, in the world anyways. We're all just recycling ideas and building on each other's ideas. But thank you so much for sharing yours with us today and your journey.
Absolutely.
I've learned a lot. I hope everyone else has, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks so much.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast, and if you leave a review on iTunes, I promise I will read every single review. If you know someone who makes a full-time living from part-time work, and maybe this is you, please visit lifestylesolopreneur.com to nominate a guest or to nominate yourself. Because remember this, money doesn't buy happiness, but money in the hands of a happy person, there is no greater tool.
Today's episode was brought to you by the Get Shift Done program. It's a lifestyle-changing online class to help you define your business and lifestyle ambitions and to set goals in a way you've never experienced before. This class will 10x your daily productivity with methods that will blow your mind. And if you use the coupon code podcast, the class tuition is 99% off. Visit GetShiftDone.com to enroll today.